Hello, this is Doug Gerlach from iClubcentral. Welcome to our Investment Club webinar for March 2021. Today is March 16th, 2021. Congratulations to all of you club treasurers in attendance tonight. Hopefully you were able to meet the IRS deadline of March 15th for your partnership 1065 filings. Most of the states, there's still some states that are outstanding, so that are still following that April 15th deadline. So you might still have some work to do, but hopefully the bulk of the work is over and your clubs took you out for a nice steak dinner. And if they didn't, tell them I suggested it. It's a great way to thank the club treasurers for their hard work all year long, and especially during the tax preparation season. Tonight in our webinar, we're going to take a look at the monthly club treasurer duties. These are the tasks that the investment club treasurer should be undertaking every month to prepare for meetings, whether you're meeting virtually, as is often the case today, or meeting in person, as hopefully someday we'll be able to convene once again in person to conduct our investment club meetings. And that'll be our topic tonight. We have covered this in the past, but there are always some updates and some changes, and this is a topic of particular interest to new club treasurers. And as we look back at our tax season, the support tickets that have been submitted by users who are having problems, many of them were failing to meet the imperative obligations and duties of the club treasurer on a regular basis. So that's why I think it's worth a refresher. Make sure that you are undertaking these tasks. And if you're new to the job, this is what you can look forward to. And if you have someone in your club who you're lining up to be the next investment club treasurer, have them take a look at this webinar as well. We'll archive it as we do on our YouTube channel. There is a handout in PDF format for this presentation, the slides that we'll be reviewing during this webinar. So feel free to grab that presentation, save it for future reference. So let's talk about the duties of the investment club treasurer, the financial partner, the person in the club who's responsible for the record keeping and financial account management within the partnership. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a single individual. Some clubs will divide the responsibilities, and that's fine as well. But either way you cut it, here are the things you should be looking at on a monthly basis, but also occasionally, and some of the year-end duties that you're probably familiar with. The regular duties happen every month or every meeting, and that includes entering the member deposits and the cash security transactions, creating the valuations and other reports. The occasional duties are things that you do in between meetings as needed, which might include processing member withdrawals or adding members to the club. And the year-end duties include closing the club's books, organizing the annual audit, the members' audit of the books, and then filing the tax returns with the IRS, and if applicable to the state or states for which your club might be required to file. So tonight we're going to take a look at the monthly duties. These are the tasks that you would undertake every month. Now, some clubs might be meeting every other month or might be meeting quarterly. That's fine as well. You can assume that these are the same types of responsibilities that you would undertake whatever your meeting schedule is. Now, I want to point out the advantages. One of the big advantages of myiclub.com for all of your club operations and record keeping are things like the wizards, the step-by-step aids that help you ensure that necessary tasks aren't omitted. They're especially great for people who are new to the task of being the treasurer of their investment club. And we feature currently 4 different wizards. We have a pre-meeting wizard, a post-meeting wizard, a startup wizard that will help your club get started, and the member withdrawal wizard, which will help you process a member who is withdrawing either partially or fully from your partnership. These are accessible from the left navigation panel in the accounting section. So you'll find them over there. Once you click on accounting from the top level menu across the top, then you'll see the wizards there. The pre and post meeting wizards are the ones you should be most familiar with. We've simply grouped the tasks that you would undertake before the meeting and those that are commonly done after the meeting. We'll step through those because that's a great way to make sure that you're not missing any essential steps. Now, the pre-meeting tasks include the following: adding new members, if there are any that are joining your club, entering the member deposits and the member fees, entering any cash or security transactions, buys, sells, dividends, distributions, interest that you might have earned, preparing the security valuation, which is a very essential step, and then printing or preparing the reports for your club meeting or for your members to review in their online meeting. Now, the wizard looks something like this. Each step along the way is grayed out until you either take care of it or you say that there is nothing applicable. So for instance, the first step is, rather the second step after you start the wizard is, have any new members joined your club since the last meeting? If the answer is yes, then you will follow the steps for adding that member to your club. If the answer is no, you click no, and at either rate, you click next. Now, if you're adding new members to the club, this involves not only the part of the membership experience where the individual writes a check and then you deposit it in the club's account, but also adding them to My iClub as a member. And there's a little bit of confusion there because we consider members of your club and members of My iClub are not necessarily the same. You can have a member of your club who does not have access to your My iClub website. We designed the website so that every member has access to view all of the club's financial information, the history, the current transactions, the portfolio of the club, who the other members are. Only administrators of the club can make changes to those, and treasurers can make changes to the financial data. But it also means you can have a member of the club who doesn't have any of that access and is simply someone who shows up at meetings and writes a check. We of course would like everyone to participate in the online experience. It makes your job as treasurer easier. So we consider them the process of adding them to your club and adding them to My iClub to be the same essentially. So this requires the name and the email address. They have to have an email address in order to register for the site so that we can verify their identity. The administrator or the treasurer would be able to send an invitation to the new member. This invitation has all the information that that individual needs in order to join the club's website, create a username and password, and have access to the club's data. They've got to click the link in that email within a specified period. It will expire, and that's again for security. They've got to create a username and a password as well. You can also add the contact information, the address, and the phone for the new member, and it's very important that you have their social security number. They must provide the club with a social security number because you need that in order to file with the IRS and to provide their Schedule K-1 at year end with the information they need for their personal tax filing. But you don't have to store that social security number in My iClub if you wish not to. It's going to make a little extra work for you at tax time because you're going to have to re-enter everyone's social security number perhaps multiple times to complete the required tax filings for the IRS and for the state. And we've had anecdotally, we've had reports of clubs that used to have members who were resistant to having their social security number be outside their control, even though we have an encrypted database out in the cloud, and we take our security very seriously. And over time, they realize that information is not at risk, and this is a very low risk enterprise. So but at any rate, you need to make sure to have that information. If you don't have a social security number and they won't provide it to you later on, you're going to be the club is going to be in trouble, not the individual, because you engaged in all this financial activity with this person who didn't have the right information. You'll be subject to in theory, you could be subject to be withholding taxes from that individual and doing a whole bunch of other filings. So it is important that you have it when you add a new member. The email invitation process is very straightforward. As part of the wizard, you can also do it as part of the people tab on the site. But the wizard allows you to customize the text that goes out to them that says, welcome to the club. Follow the instructions in this email, and you will have access to our club website. These people might already be visitors or guests to your club. That's possible as well. But this is how you can invite them to be part of the website. So once you complete that step, the next step is to record any new payments from members to record in your club books. We classify, we call what often are known as the club dues. We call those member payments. And then you have another type of money that people might be giving the club are member fees. Together, member payments and member fees are part of the member deposits. So when we talk about payments, this is money that goes into the club. It's credited to the member's capital account. It purchases units. It's their investment in the club that happens on an ongoing basis. So typically, before the meeting, you might not have payments to record. Because you did it after the last meeting. If you did, select yes. If not, select no, click next. And as I said, typically the member payments are entered after the meeting. We consider it bad practice to sit on checks if you have them. And wait to deposit them, but you're going to develop your own policy. So, for instance, it's in your interest as treasurers to keep the treasurers of your clubs to keep things as simple as possible. So if someone is late with a check and they deliver it after the club meeting, your club might well say, we're going to hold that check and we'll deposit it at the next club meeting along with that person's regular contribution for that club meeting. And that would be fine as well. It does provide something of a penalty for the member for having a late payment, because over time, if you miss enough meetings and your contributions are delayed a month with the general hopeful upward trajectory of your club unit value, they're going to be buying units at a more expensive rate because they're late, they're missing a meeting. So, but you might also say, if you get it to me before the end of the week, we'll include it in the deposit. So it's up to you to set your policies and procedures, but definitely do that. How you deposit them, if you're going to deposit them before the meeting and credit them at purchasing units as of the last meeting date, or if you're going to wait until after the next meeting, so they get the next meeting date's unit value, right? So it's a subtle issue, and it might not be very much, but again, over the course of many years, a few cents here, a few cents there can make a difference in an individual member's total return in their investment within the club. The member deposit screen in the wizard is the same as in the accounting members area. It allows you to enter a default amount, and that will populate every member of the club. Then you can edit individually any members whose amount is slightly different. Select the account that it goes to, the bank, the broker, the date of the deposit, and click the submit button at the bottom. That records all of the member payments for the club for the month. If you have fees that you're collected, you also have the opportunity in the pre-meeting and post-meeting wizard to record those fees. And so if you do, you would select yes. If not, you would select no. Typically, they're entered at the same time as member payments. For accounting purposes in the records, I could see where you would put fees on a slightly different day to be able to differentiate them. But key takeaway that I would like to leave you with here is that member fees are a somewhat outdated practice, and that if you're stuck enforcing prompt payments by levying fees, that's problematic, I think, and it never is going to be fully effective. We suggest that member fees only be used for penalty situations such as bounce checks. Whatever you do, never collect member fees to cover club expenses. So you say, oh, we had to buy renew our software, we purchased the tax generation software, we have a Better Investing membership. Never try to collect fees from members for those. That should be paid for out of the club's total capital, because it benefits all members. Even if you have some people who don't want to be a member, who are not reimbursing you for membership, we really suggest that you eliminate fees entirely. If someone bounces a check, they should cover that expense. That money would be a fee. But otherwise, you're not trying to collect money from members as fees. Fees don't purchase units. There's really, at the end of the day, it seems like it should be fairer, but it's actually a little more complicated. And you can get into trouble if you have an expense and you try to collect fees against it. If you are equally allocating that expense, you end up penalizing certain members of the club. It doesn't work the way that you think it does. And you can try this out if you want. We've covered it in detail. If you want to make your job easier, and I've never heard of a treasurer who says, no, I'm fine making it as complex as possible. I'm fine with whatever rules the club sets up, and no matter how long it takes me to prepare the club's books each month, then disregard what I'm going to say. But the rest of you, try to make the treasurer's job as easy as possible. If you eliminate late fees, then the treasurer doesn't have to track down people, has fewer transactions they have to enter, and it will make things a lot easier. Eliminate annual club dues, keep them off the books. If you want to, individuals of your club want to join Better Investing through the club, you can handle that by having each member write a check to Better Investing and completely separate it from the club's books. That's fine as well. If it's going to be a point of contention within your club, that's a much easier way to handle it. So if necessary, and if you do have fees, this is the time at which you would enter them after the prior meeting. And the fee screen looks the same as the payment screen. You can set a default amount, or you can edit or enter the values individually for each member. And now the next step will be, step 8 will be to record any cash or security transactions in your books: interest, dividends, distributions, expenses, purchases, sales. If you have yes, answer yes. If no, answer no. Click next. So these would also include splits, mergers, spin-offs, all sorts of transactions that might have occurred. This would theoretically be done in conjunction with a review of at least your brokerage or bank statement, or the transactions from the bank or brokerage website. You could utilize those as well. And again, when we're looking at transactions, back to the theme of keeping the treasurer's job easier, we suggest that you don't use automatic dividend reinvestment of any sort for the securities in your portfolio. And so that, again, will keep the treasurer's job easier. Better Investing does suggest, as part of its 4 principles, that investors reinvest all income back into the portfolio. Don't take your dividends and spend them as cash, but reinvest them in the portfolio. It does not stipulate that you should reinvest in the same security in the portfolio. And so in investment clubs, reinvestment becomes difficult at tax time, because you'll end up over the course of many years having each reinvestment make up its own tax lot. And we worked with a treasurer who had, the club had sold its GE stock. They had held it for many years. They had 96 different tax lots that they had to reconcile when they prepared their tax forms. And so it became very cumbersome to select which lots were long-term gains, short-term gains, and to match the 1099-B with the club's books. If they had simply not reinvested those dividends, but used that as dividends to invest in other securities, it would not have affected their returns very significantly, and it would have made the treasurer's job a whole lot easier. When you have problematic securities like that we'll talk about in a minute, including real estate investment trusts, reinvesting those is even more problematic because you have to adjust the distributions at year end to reflect the allocation type of those distributions, whether it's a return of capital or a qualifying dividend or a capital gain. And so you might end up having to not only redo the distributions, but the reinvested transactions, in effect creating multiple tax lots that are in the system in order to accommodate those distribution types. So just a couple of tips. We'll talk more about this as we go. For your cash transactions, you would enter any interest paid. If you're lucky enough to be receiving interest in today's low interest rate environment, and enter your security distributions. And it's really key that you enter those distributions as cash transactions in the security section, not as cash dividends in the cash section, because we need to be able to determine the qualifying nature of those dividends. And again, enter the reinvested dividends, and you might have foreign tax that's withheld from dividends issued by foreign companies. That all has to be entered as you go as well. We talked about, and I mentioned some securities to avoid in clubs. We suggest that you do not hold problem securities, anything, first of all, with partners or a partnership in the name, a master limited partnership, a general partnership, a limited partnership. These provide K1s to their investors, which are due on March 15th. So if your club is an investor in one of these partnerships, you might not receive your K1 until very close to the March 15th tax filing deadline for partnership returns, which would require your club to request an extension from the IRS. That's one problem. Another problem would be that these types of entities, these securities, don't typically pay a lot of dividends. They pay distributions that include returns of capital, capital gains, and other types of income that you have to account for specifically. So royalty trusts, real estate investment trusts also generate a lot of problems for partnerships to own them by the nature of the partnership accounting. It's not a shortfall of the unit valuation system that we use in the ICLUB program, but it's just when we are valuing your portfolio on a monthly basis, and then at the end of the year you have to adjust the transactions that you've entered. Now those retroactive, any transactions that were affected, such as a withdrawal, might now the nature of those withdrawals is changing because you had to change something from a dividend to a return of capital. So just some of the problems. They're going to require some manual entries on your tax filing as well. Real estate investment trusts are a little less problematic, but again, they can end up creating a lot of extra work. And unless you're comfortable with and understand the various types of distributions that real estate investment trusts make and the categorization they do at year end, these are great for individuals, not so great for investment clubs. Widely held fixed income trusts, commodity-based ETFs, these are ETFs that hold precious metals or mortgages or cyber currency. Those are also problematic because the tax rules around those are not the same as for stocks that trade on an exchange. Even though the ETFs trade on an exchange, the IRS looks at an ETF that owns gold as if the shareholder was actually owning the underlying gold, not owning a security, and gold is taxed as a collectible. So there's a whole different category of taxation that will be problematic. Prepackaged folios or baskets are also a bad idea for partnerships because you have to track as a partnership every tax lot. So if you decided, oh, it's great, we'll have a basket of 25 stocks and we're just going to buy that basket every month. No, you've got 25 different tax lots that have to be reconciled every month in your club. And that is going to make tax preparation a real chore when you sell. But it's also going to require individual entries for every security in that basket. It's not the same for an individual investor, but for a partnership, you've got to do the more granular tracking in order to accommodate them. So we suggest that you avoid those. So we have, as you can see, when you're entering a transaction, there are a number of different transaction types, ranging from transferring cash, interest, expense, money market, dividends, buy or sell of a security, a dividend or distribution, a reinvested dividend or distribution, stock split, merger, spinoff, charges paid by company, foreign tax. So there are all sorts of different transactions that could be on your broker's financial account statement for the month. So here is an example of a distribution for a stock, some explanation at the top. Then it's very important for distributions that are paid by stocks that you record the accurate ex-dividend date. We will try to populate it based on the payout date of the distribution that you enter here. We'll look it up, but we also provide a find it link that will allow you to look up the history of dividends and find that ex-dividend date. The ex-dividend date helps to determine the qualifying nature of dividends that you might receive. So it's really important that it's there. Enter the amount, if there's foreign tax withheld, and the other details. And once you have entered a transaction, the wizard will ask if you have more. And so you will repeat that process for every transaction that you have until you answer no, and you'll move on to the next step to choose the valuation date. And again, this is critical. Every month, the treasurer must create a security valuation, must determine the prices of all securities held in the club account. So you'll choose a valuation date. This is determined by your club. We suggest that it be as close as possible to the meeting date so that the members are able to view the valuation statement and understand the current conditions and prices of the portfolio. Some treasurers and clubs might prefer to set the valuation date at the end of the month to help them with the reconciliation with the year-end, the month-end brokerage statement. Again, that's fine as well, but it's not crucial that you do that, and it often doesn't match up exactly. What a broker might price a security at month end might not be the same as the price in our database. Again, that it's fine. The discrepancies are usually pretty small, but I would suggest keeping it as close as possible to your meeting date. So select that valuation date, click next, and you will be generating your valuation. And then when you create it, one thing to look out for is that we bring in the most current price for every ticker symbol that you have in the system. If the ticker symbol changes, we won't be able to retrieve a current price, and so the date will be different. That's something to look out for. Maybe you missed that the ticker symbol was changed, the stock was suspended from trading, there was a merger or spinoff that took effect, and so now the price the last price is from a week or 2 weeks or a month ago. Those are something that you want to be thinking about as you're able to check those prices. So the valuation screen looks something like this. We have a database of closing prices that goes back several decades, and so we can help you look up prices going back in time. But you'll see the default price date here. You can quickly scan that and make sure that everything is pulling in prices for your selected date. if it were to have a date that was older than the, a couple of weeks old, that's your clue that there might be something going on with this particular stock. Another case that happens is that we don't cover pink sheet stocks in our price database. So it might be that you have selected an over-the-counter stock that doesn't trade on NASDAQ, for which we don't have a price for, or it could be a private security, or it could be a non-stock security that you own that isn't priced on a regular basis. And so you would have to manually enter the price here on the screen in order to properly reflect the total valuation of your portfolio. So, and once you've created that valuation, now you're going to prepare the reports for your club. The valuation statement and the member status report are the most common reports that are by default provided by treasurers and clubs to their members on a monthly basis. But we have created what we call our unified monthly report that includes both of those, as well as a report of all the cash and security transactions since the last meeting. And the idea is that you can go to one place instead of going to 3 different places or generating 3 different reports. And again, one of the advantages of using My iClub is the treasurer doesn't need to print reports, doesn't need to make copies, doesn't need to send out emails with attachments. The members can simply go to the website and print out their own copies, save the PDF, print it out if they wish to, save it on their computer, view it on the screen. So it makes the treasurer's job a whole lot easier. And I still hear from treasurers who say, yes, I can't get our members to do it. As long as you continue to provide all the members with the reports, they're not going to do it. So at some point, you want to get people in the habit of being able to log in and grab their own copy of the value statement prior to the meetings that you might have. So you're able in My iClub to print or save reports to your personal computer. All of the reports are, you can customize them for any date range, and any member can view a report. It doesn't modify the data in any way when you view reports. But if you do choose to save a PDF or a printout of any particular report, just keep in mind that the nature of unit value accounting is that if I generate a report as of March 1st, and then I realize I missed a transaction in February, and I go back and make that correction, enter that transaction in February, that March 1st report is no longer going to be applicable. And so you would have to generate a new report. So as long as everyone understands that a report is a snapshot of a particular time, a view of the club's records and data as of that date, it's subject to change until perhaps once the club's books have been finalized for the year, then generally you don't have to go back as long as the books are accurate and make changes that might impact transactions. We'll talk about the importance of that in just a couple of minutes. So you can print or save the reports, and there's a link to, here's the member status report. There's a PDF link that you can click to generate from the wizard. And that takes you to the end of the pre-meeting wizard. If you wish, you can send those PDFs as an email to your club members from your personal email account if you want. However, what a lot of people do is use the links up at the top, the icon link. There's a little email link right here, that little envelope that allows you to generate an email that goes to all your club members that says that the valuation has been done. Now you can come view the reports and download them for your personal use. So all the reports have this PDF icon that you can click to generate and save a PDF file, and there's also the email icon that you can click, and now it will go by default to all the members who are in your club, and you can customize the text. The text has the link makes it as easy as possible. If they click that link, they will be prompted to log in. They will be taken to the report, the club's valuation statement or member status or unified report. So they don't have to mosey around the site to try to find it. The link is right there. So again, we're trying to make it as easy as possible for the treasurer, for the administrator, as well as for the members, because we know it's frustrating when the club administrator hears from a member who says, I couldn't log in, I couldn't find the report, I don't know where that area is. So we've taken that into account in designing this system and making it as easy as possible for people to get the information that they need. So that email is something that you should get familiar with. You'll find that email icon throughout the website. It's a great way to share a particular snapshot or report at any time with any member. The report is very straightforward that the club will get. They'll be to click on it and get it. So a couple of additional tasks that we'll cover. It's very, very, very important that you reconcile accounts on a regular basis. If it's not monthly, if you want to do it every other month or once a quarter, that's fine. But you really want to make sure that the cash balance and the number of shares match with your bank account and brokerage account. The value, the total portfolio value that your broker might show might differ from what you see in our books, and that's fine. Again, maybe they're using the prices from a day later, maybe they're using the average price, maybe they're using the last sale price, and we're using the last offer price for the day. You know, there are all sorts of permutations. So there's never a stock price that is going to be absolutely the same across the board. It really depends on the how it's being utilized. So that is less crucial, but the amount of cash should definitely match up, and the number of shares of every security should match up. And it takes just a couple of minutes to make sure that you can look at the valuation statement and compare the number of shares to everything that you hold in your brokerage account, down to the fractions. And you do this on a monthly basis, and it really prevents all those tiny errors from stacking up and becoming difficult to track down. And we go through this every year at tax season. We have people who say, oh, you know, my balance is off by 15 shares. How do you, you know, and we go back, and it's been that way for years. They've been ignoring it, and it's just made everything inaccurate since that time by some very small percentage. But still, it's something that could have been avoided if they had taken the time to identify the problem when closer to when it happened, as opposed to several years later, because they had to go back through hundreds of transactions to try to find at what point did this number of shares from the broker statement and from the club's books begin to differ. And then you could go about fixing it, but now there are ripple effects going forward where withdrawals are now not being valued the same, where distributions and allocations are off. So there, and the cost basis is off when you're trying to sell, and the lots don't match up. So it becomes a real chore. So if you keep your books simple and you double check them every month and make sure that they are reconciled, it's going to make a big difference to your workload, and you won't have to worry about these types of major problems. And so let's talk now very quickly about the post-meeting tasks. These are the same as the pre-meeting tasks, but generally after the meeting, you might have elected a new member, and so you will add that member. You might have member deposits, you might have member fees, and you might have elected to purchase a stock or sell a stock, and so you might have those transactions. So the wizard works the same in the post-meeting as the pre-meeting wizard. There are fewer steps, but just focuses on those post-meeting tasks. So again, go through them after the meeting. It'll make sure that you've got everything accounted for, and you'll be ready for the next club meeting when it rolls around. So we have time for a couple of questions. I'll remind you that our schedule of webinars is at iclub.com/webinars, so you can join us for our regular monthly webinars as well as our other content that we produce. You can find help at iclub.com/support, and we do have toll-free telephone support available 5 days a week from 9:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time at 877-33 iClub. So call us if you need to. We suggest that you use that online help module first. Send us a ticket with all the information, and our team will be able to get back to you. Of course, now during the pandemic, our workforce, our offices have been closed for the last year, so all of our staff have been working remotely. So that inhibits the ability to reach reps by phone a little bit. It slows down the resolution of some questions, because instead of leaning around a cubicle and saying, hey, do you know the answer to this question? Now the reps have to follow up and send an email or send an instant message. So I just ask you to be patient. They do a great job there in the support team. But that's why that online support request is just as vital as ever, and gets expeditious service if you can utilize it.
Doug?
Yes, Russell.
I just wanted to reiterate your thing about reconciling. Some of the most vexing problems that I see have to do with clubs not finding differences in the number of shares or their cash balances, and oftentimes it goes back years and it's really difficult to fix. So just doing a quick check once a month, that especially the cash and the number of shares balances, will help prevent really big problems from compounding.
It's amazing. We have, some of the requests that we get for support, people saying things, things don't match up. And when we go, help them try to dive through it, it can take a lot of time. And then the fixes, can be kind of complicated, because now you're going back. It's very tricky when you're going back in time and fixing something from a couple of years ago. So there can be lots of unintended consequences. So certainly we want your books to be accurate, and we're providing the tools that let you do that. But you've got to make sure that you do your part as well. We'll do a couple of questions. I see Russell and Sean have been in the back office helping out, and they have been answering user questions along the way. So Steve suggests that we take a look at the reports in my iClub, and we will certainly line that up for a future webinar. We have over 43 different reports and graphs now available, and we have added 2 in the last year based on user feedback. So we are constantly looking at ways to present information efficiently and effectively, and help people utilize them. But we'll go over some of the uses of those various reports. We'll schedule a webinar to tackle that particular topic. Glenita says that her club uses PayPal, so they PayPal, the members PayPal to their member payments to one member, who then aggregates that money and sends it to the broker in one batch. I think that's fine, as long as it's got to be very delineated how that actually works, because it's a little different than writing a check. You're sending cash. You're in effect sending cash to one member, and so that's a big responsibility to make sure that that money is being transferred and recorded properly. There are ways. Many brokers will accept an electronic payment or an ACH payment that will be sent by the members to the broker, and the common practice is the treasurer assigns a different amount of pennies to every member. So each member gets to add a few extra pennies to their member payment each month, and that way, when you see those individual deposits in the brokerage account, you can say, oh, 27 cents, $30.27, 27 cents is Sean's number, so this is Sean's payment. 29 cents, that's Russell's payment, so $30.29 is Russell, and 14 cents is Doug. So the $20.14, that's Doug's payment. And again, the pennies differ, but over time, it's pretty inconsequential if you were really bothered that somebody might be able to contribute $1 more, 99 cents more than some other member. And this will work up to 99 cents. You just round up you just add another $1, and so this method is a pretty effective way of allowing members to make automatic contributions or payments directly into your account. Contact your broker to make sure that they allow that. Some brokers are cracking down on the practice, but there's a way to send a check directly to a broker so that it would be something like XYZ brokerage firm FBO, which stands for benefit of the ABC Investment Club, account number 2222222, right? There's a particular payee that you would use that would direct let the brokerage firm know which account this money goes into. And the clubs that are brokers that support this are generally able to accommodate it every once in a while. Just like with anything that's dependent on the mail these days, there might be deposits that get delayed, or that money that gets checks that get cashed but don't get credited to the account. But generally speaking, those are easy to get reconciled when you do have those particular problems. There's a question from Kolawole about profit sharing. If you agree to a specific amount of profit sharing and distribution to members, perhaps quarterly, how would you do that in the software? And that it's accomplished. It's a partial withdrawal, and partial withdrawals are anytime a member is taking money out of the partnership. It's either a partial or a full withdrawal, and you can make any number of partial withdrawals until you run out of funds. Some clubs may restrict the members' ability to make more than a certain number of partnerships per year, and kind of keep this in mind. You're talking about profit sharing when you make a withdrawal from a partnership. But according to IRS regulations, you get your money back first. You get your capital returned to you before profits. So the profit sharing that you would envision actually would be accomplished by returning capital first and leaving the profits in the partnership. So the quarterly distributions, if you were to make them, would be non-taxable to the partners. So again, most people kind of prefer that. They don't have to pay taxes. They can get an income stream or get cash when they need it, and it's only when they withdraw enough of their capital that they're paid in plus earnings capital that they start to withdraw profits. And then when you start withdrawing profits, that generates a tax liability. But we cover this in we have a webinar on member withdrawals where we cover all these different possibilities. And so that is definitely required viewing if you're considering or have questions about processing member withdrawals. Well, with that, I think we're going to wrap it up tonight. Thank you, Sean and Russell in the back office. Thanks to all of you for attending. Once again, congratulations to all of you club treasurers who wrapped up another successful tax season for your clubs. We'll look forward to seeing you at our next Investment Club webinar in April, where we'll tackle the occasional duties of the club treasurer. We'll touch on the member withdrawals and other occasional tasks. And so that'll be what we'll cover next time. Then we'll be off on some additional topics, but feel free to reach out to me at gerlach@iclub.com with questions, comments, concerns, suggestions. I look forward to hearing from you. And thank you once again. We'll see you at our next Investment Club webinar.